All right.
Well, Brett, thank you so much for participating in my Countdown to the Moon project. I know you've been working on a book, which I look forward to talking about, Goodnight Moonbase. But I was wondering if you could talk about the other things you do.
Okay. Well, thank you first, Nathan, for having me as part of your program here. Looking forward to humans returning to the moon. I'm honored and thrilled, and I love what you're doing. So thank you very much for that. So so uh, well, I like to live by a quote I love from Henry Bergson, which is to think like a man of action and act like a man of thought. So have you ever heard that quote before?
I had not, but it sounds like the right balance between it's like the philosopher king idea, I guess.
Yeah, a practical philosopher, I think. Um, so I've always been passionate about airplanes and things that fly. So, but what I like to bring to everything I do is a mixture of analytical skills, technical skills, as well as creative skills. Um, so to be thoughtful but practical and hopefully artistic too. So, uh, so I've been an aerospace or aeronautical engineer for most of my career. I worked for about 15 years as an engineer, working on airplanes and aircraft of different kinds. Then I moved into project management. So I like to think of myself as a systems thinker, and I realized that for the complex systems in our world, there's a lot of technical problems, but the bigger system is everything else that goes into it, like the people, like the legal aspects, the risks, the social aspects, right, all those things. That's all part of our system too that we need to think about to make something successful. So I was a project or program manager for about 10 years, and um, and then I also through that I really with my creativity I got passionate about innovation. So I've done a lot of innovation initiatives in companies and organizations, and through that I was fortunate to get 3 patents or inventions of my own to apply my creativity with technical things. So that's been a big thrill for me. And I also used my creativity as an outlet with writing books eventually. So you mentioned that the first book I wrote was actually to help other people move into careers in aerospace or aeronautics. It's called How to Be a Rocket Scientist. And so that was 10 tips to help people see that we're in a new world now today. And this, I think, connects with what's happening with our moon exploration, that we're in a world of tremendous abundance and opportunity today when everyone in the world with the computer and the internet has access to wisdom and knowledge from anyone and to connect with anyone. And so for people that want to find a space of their own, you know, in the space race or space exploration, there's just a huge amount of opportunities in there. So that's why I wrote How to Be a Rocket Scientist. And let's see, I think that's a lot of what I'm doing. But I will mention that so the book I'm working on now is to help us get to the moon again, but to stay there and to stay with the right philosophy, because I really believe that it's not technology holding us back. It's the ideas that we have and the philosophies we have and the level of consciousness we will bring to the exploration and to the mission. So I really see this as a important point in our cosmic history as humanity, as a species. And the philosophy we bring to the moon when we go back is really going to set us on a cosmic history for the rest of our lifespan as a species, as humans. So to help us move in the right direction in that regard and inspire people and empower people, I'm writing a book called Goodnight Moonbase, which is meant to be a modern sequel and a spin-off of the classic children's bedtime book Goodnight Moon. So there you go.
I'm definitely looking forward to seeing Goodnight Moonbase. But you kind of touched on a lot of the things that I've been thinking about and have come up in these interviews as well. And that is from a technology standpoint, we can get to the moon, we can stay on the moon sustainably, we can mine the moon, we can turn it into usable materials and, create this whole infrastructure that allows for us to truly start utilizing the space beyond Earth to help benefit humanity here on Earth and to allow for humanity to move out into the rest of the solar system. But there's this kind of a values issue and believability issue that we seem to come up against, I think.
What was the values and what was the second thing you said?
Believability.
Believability. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I am around the values. It's kind of ironic. One of the most surprising comments I got from one of the people I interviewed that I didn't expect was the phrase, "We shouldn't go to the moon because we messed up the moon. No, we messed up the Earth. We shouldn't mess up the moon too." Which I thought, wow. And then, kind of thinking back on sort of that Apollo 8 picture with the Earthrise and how that was like the poster child for the Earth Day movement and what have you. It's kind of ironic that the space exploration kind of planted seeds to undermine itself through that kind of.
Undermine itself how? I don't follow that.
Oh, so I feel like that the Earthrise photo helped to create a concept that Earth is fragile and that we need to do something to protect the Earth. Within a couple of years of that picture being taken, we had the first Earth Day. The
Okay.
EPA
I get it.
was created, and so this whole concept that human activity is bad
Okay.
became kind of like a resounding sort of outcome of the environmental movement. And I think in some ways it kind of
It created competition for the space exploration, right?
right, or even just this idea that maybe humanity staying on the Earth and not going any further is not such a bad idea, type of thing. Like
Okay.
we're some
Well,
type of scourge
so
to the universe.
so I hear that argument and I understand it, but here's my take on it, which might be different. I don't know if you've heard this before, is that uh, I really think it's incumbent on us to understand the nature of reality that we live in, the nature of the universe, and that includes the nature of us as humans. What is human nature? Okay, and I like to think about these things. They're big, big ideas, but something that seems to me completely true about humanity is we have an insatiable desire to explore and to achieve and also to gain control and power over our environment and our world. And sometimes, unfortunately, that means other people and oppressing them, right? But it also means the power to harness energy like steam and nuclear power, right? And learning how to mine resources and build new things, build new habitats. So where I'm going is that I believe it's impossible for us to deny or stop the pursuit of humanity to go beyond Earth. That's going to happen. The big question is when and how and why will we do it? And so we could take, and this comes back to our philosophy. What is our philosophy about going to the moon and beyond? So will it be for the pursuit of science and technology and knowledge and wisdom, which I think is what motivates NASA and scientific people and agencies, but it could also be for national glory and pride, right? And so I think that's what motivates the Chinese program a lot, but also American programs, right? But it could also be for military conquest, and we now have the U.S. Space Force, right? So I think it's very predictable that they would want to establish a moon base for themselves, right? And it could be for other reasons too. So my point is, it's going to happen. So there's also the tourism, the adventure, and the profit motive that would motivate people to go to the moon, and that's what SpaceX and some other companies are pursuing, right? So uh, my belief is we do need to solve our problems here on Earth, but we are also going to pursue going to the moon. And what I want us to do, hopefully as a species, is do it with good intentions, with honorable intentions, peacefully, with prosperity, with cooperation. And so that again is a big reason why I think we need to start influencing people with those ideas as soon as possible, when they're as young as possible. And that's a big reason why I'm writing Goodnight Moonbase, to help plant those seeds of a positive future and a positive vision as we go back to the moon.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot to take in, for sure. And I definitely agree with you that going out into the solar system is something that's going to happen regardless of all these other factors. And the question as to when and how is an important one. But I think one of the things I see in society is you could pretty much ask anybody, you know, what's the Dow at today? How's the stock market doing? Is it up or down? And a lot of people are spending time on decisions like, should I buy the stock or sell the stock or what have you. But I don't, and we all seem to celebrate like rich people or famous people, but you don't see that same type of celebration of sort of smart people or people that are looking into, into science and trying to discover, engineer things. And in some respect, you kind of see sort of an interesting dynamic in terms of power of those who actually can do things versus those that manage the people that do things. It's kind of interesting, I think, in the sense that our society, doesn't seem to be set up in a way that it really does value science and exploration and discovery, but is kind of set up more along, uh, you know, wealth and finance and economics and popularity and things like that. I mean, I know you have some counter uh, things happening that are really good, like the do-it-yourself community and all these hacker maker spaces. And you definitely have a lot of people that are interested in science and what have you. But they're to what extent does that actually affect policymakers and sort of the general public? Yeah, I mean, even this COVID-19 situation has created somewhat of a backlash against science, in the sense that you have these people who are yeah, being used by policymakers from, as seen by a certain segment of the population as being used as an excuse to kind of control people, so and you can see that, there's a lot of energy being driven into like politics and religion and what have you as a result of sort of that kind of, it is impossible for me to understand, therefore it's not understandable or worth understanding, and this other thing's much simpler and might get me to where I need to go. I was wondering if you saw some of that, or if
I
all this is.
do. I mean, I think we're struggling in a lot of ways as people, both as individuals and as a species, as societies, to navigate through the changing world. So there's a great book I recently read by Rebecca Costa called The Watchman's Rattle. Have you heard of her? Heard of
I
this book?
haven't, no.
So, well, one of the premises of the book is that we are incredibly difficult time because we are humans that are biological species, and we evolve at the pace of evolution, which takes eons, like millions of years, right? But we have now created technologies that evolve and iterate on the scale of weeks or months, right? And it's just, how can we deal with those dramatically different timescales uh, when some people are not keeping up? Well, a lot of people are not, right? So it's a historic challenge for our species, and there's a lot of ways it could go wrong, and it has already, I think, right? So um, I don't have all the answers for sure, but I think we have to do our best to figure out how to make us make it rising tide lifts all boats. We have to lift all people up to live in our world as it changes. So that's why, again, I believe going back to the moon is a great opportunity if we do it right, because it will help everyone else see the larger picture that we play in the universe, the larger role we have, and the longer view that we should take. But it's still, there's a lot of things that when I think about them make me upset. Like, just simple example now, there's over 1 billion people that still do not have indoor plumbing on our planet. Just think about that, and it's outrageous, right? So it's just horrible, right? But still, technology is advancing. We're not all equal beneficiaries of it, but I do believe that going back to the moon is a great opportunity, because if we do it with the right philosophy, for the right reasons, it can lift up everybody else here back on Earth and make us realize that we really do need to be smarter as a species and figure out how to live for the long haul. So to give you another example for perspective, have you heard of are you familiar with the Long Now Foundation?
I am, and Jeff Bezos's 10,000-year clock that he's funding out in West Texas.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that, but have you had anyone from the Long Now Foundation in one of your interviews?
If I have, they haven't identified them as such, so
Okay.
so I would think not.
Okay, well, so what they do, which I love, is they don't consider us living in the year 2020 now. It's 2020. Put another digit in front of it, and that changes our perspective, right?
Oh, exactly. Yeah, maybe a few more zeros in front of it, like an odometer, 000 2020. Yeah. No, that's great. Like you have so much more to go.
Right. So, and in a lot of ways, we are just getting started as a species, I believe. So,
But and with that perspective in mind, I mean, the Goodnight Moon Base is targeting kind of like a key demographic, which is kind of preschoolers, people who've not even entered into school. But then, I think about the way kind of schooling is done and how we just chop up each subject and introduce competitiveness from the very beginning, as opposed to that cooperative wonder and exploration. And it feels like kind of the way school is structured sort of creates some of the problems that we see in society in terms of kind of, I mean, I think a lot of people who go through the schooling system, well, who started at the schooling system, did have an innate sense for exploration and discovery and learning and wonder. But I think by the end of those 12, 13 years, it's been kind of
been beaten out of most kids, I think.
exactly. It's what's your grade? It doesn't matter what you learn. What it matters if you get an A.
Yep. Yeah. Well, maybe it's better not to rant too much about that, but I do believe our education system is broken in a lot of ways and needs a total redesign, because it's a vestige of an earlier world when we had to basically train kids how to work in the farms or in the fields, or then in the factories, actually, how to move them from the farms to the factories. It's the industrial age model, right? And each classroom, each grade is like a next step on the assembly line, right? And then you spit them out at the end, and there they go. Right? So it's definitely not a humanistic, individualized model. So I think there's plenty of opportunity there, but again, we can choose to see it as a negative or a positive, and we have just tremendous abundance and opportunities in our world today to take advantage of them if we want to, and freedom. But we have to realize that we can't wait for other people to make that decision or authority for us. We have to claim it for ourselves. And so, hopefully I'm doing a fair job with my kids, but we'll see. But I think everybody just needs to be a good advocate for continuous learning and exploration. And as you probably know, the space race, the space age was, that inspired millions of kids around the world, right? To see the rockets launched, to see Neil Armstrong walk on the moon. I'm thinking, there's, from my years in working in aerospace industry, you couldn't talk to anyone in a room without finding someone who said, "Yep, I saw that," or I was watching the space shuttle, and that's why I'm here doing this, right? So I think going back to the moon will just unleash a whole new wave of innovation and inspiration for young kids and their families. So it's going to be a big net positive.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I especially look forward to that day when, with the unaided eye, you can look up at the moon and see evidence of human activity. I think that will be,
Sparkling lights, right?
yeah, something like that, where you're like, oh, wow, there are people up there. I want to be up there. I mean, that whole
Yeah.
kind of.
Well, I actually thinking the other day, imagine that there will be a time in the future when people look up in the moon and some people will be able to say, I remember looking up there and it was just a moon, nothing else. But now we see lights and things happening, right? So, I mean, that's incredible by itself, right?
Yeah, and just kind of taking it one step forward and kind of like a absurd direction. You know how we have Greenpeace doing the environmental activism here on Earth? I was
Mhm.
thinking, imagine at some point we start developing like greenhouses that eventually cover the entire moon, and then the moon becomes green. Then we would have like Greypeace active, active on the moon, trying to prevent the
I haven't thought
the
of that, but actually, there is a group that is already doing that called For All Moonkind. Have you heard of them?
I have, in terms of trying to protect the heritage sites,
Right.
as opposed to, I mean, I think what they're doing is an important thing in terms of making sure that like the Apollo 11, landing sites preserved for future generations doesn't
Right.
become a scrapyard or something.
Right. Yeah. So, but I think if anyone was going to, help with that uh, kind of preservation, it would be For All Moonkind. And I'll tell you this also, fun fact preview. They are going to have a mention and a little plug in the book Goodnight Moonbase. So,
And that's cool. Well, in order for something to be inspirational, people have to know about it. And I was curious, when did you find out and how did you find out that we were planning to go back to the moon in 2024?
well, I've just been following the NASA program and plans for several years, since they started. And so I just I read a lot of news or try to follow it, about the space exploration programs. Um, I'm a senior member of AIAA, American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics. So through my membership, they have a daily email news brief that is great for all things space and aviation and some cybersecurity in there too, and education efforts within STEM kind of aerospace things. So that's a great resource to keep me updated on the program there and other things.
Um, would it surprise you that most of the non-space people I've interviewed didn't know we were going to the moon?
Well, probably not. I mean, I'd be surprised, maybe disappointed if they didn't think there was some effort somewhere, people trying to go back to the moon, because it's not just NASA, right? It's the Chinese, it's the private companies, it's other countries. So, but people have their own lives. They have a lot of demands on their time and attention. So, like going back to the other point, a lot of people are just worried about survival day to day, right? So um, I'm sure when we actually have the launches to the moon and broadcasting videos from the moon, right, then they'll learn about it then. So
Yeah, I noticed NASA just announced a couple of days ago a request for proposals or partners to kind of provide a more um, realistic experience of. I, I mean, it sounds like almost like trying to create some type of virtual a reality type of experience. So as they go back to the moon, more of us can feel like we're there with them.
Hmm.
I thought that was kind of a good
Well, that
idea.
sounds like that's an awesome idea. We need to get the Oculus company involved with that, right?
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Make the VR headset and even we'd have to deal with the time delay, but what if you could actually patch in live, so to speak, while the astronauts are walking around, working around the moon, and actually get a a webcam or display with them, right? That would be cool.
It would be. Um, well, I think back in 1969, we had three network TVs, television stations. Nobody had DVR. There wasn't the internet, and pretty much every city had one or two newspapers. So if you got on TV, if you were in a newspaper, pretty much everybody knew about it, whatever it was. Today, a lot of people will get their information online um, from various sites. A lot of those sites are actually personalize your news feed. So if you've expressed interest in the past in the subject, you might see those bumped up. If you've not expressed interest in the past in the subject, you might not even see those at all. And so this kind of creates a situation where people can aren't working with the same sets of information. You can really create your own bubble however you want and
Mhm.
never have to get outside of that bubble. There's infinite amount of content in that bubble space.
Right.
And I was kind of wondering how this played into your thinking of society and um, how, if you see any risk with that or benefits. I mean,
Well, it's I think another case where we have technology outpacing our consciousness, our level of consciousness as people and as a species. We have to learn how to keep keep a human-centered approach, not let technology become more important than people, and people have to realize how powerful technology can be to influence us. And we're all uh, subject to those powers, right? With um, biases, confirmation bias, uh, being exposed to certain things over and over again, not being exposed to other things, right? So it's part of our reality. I think personally, I think it's just essentially essential, crucial for us to keep a free and open society where we have exposure to all these ideas and information sources, and we have to be free to pursue the truth, to learn the truth, to debate the truth or what we think is the truth or other ideas, and hopefully, I believe eventually the truth and the best ideas will win ultimately. Um, but that's part of our human struggle, I think. So
I heard part of the challenge is it's not so much the best ideas that win, but the best defended ideas that seem to win, which is a
well, it could
challenge.
be, but I think, I mean, I don't think that's ever going to end. As long as humans are alive to think and to feel and to speak, to and explore our world. Um, like I said before, we're just getting started as a species, and just think about there's plenty of things we don't know about the universe still, right? Like we don't even know how gravity works. So how are we going to figure that out unless we are able to be free to discuss and explore these things and to test them and to share that knowledge or those results. We're able to make these discoveries. So um, that's why I hope we just do the right things and approach these explorations with the right philosophy, so that we can all benefit from them. and not just use it for other less noble purposes. So
Yeah, and I think you touched on what I think is going to be the one of the best benefits or most immediate benefits that we get on Earth, and that's insights and a new way of looking at our place in the universe. Um, I mean, how much of scientific discovery and innovation have come from a gut feeling or a flash of insight? And when you consider that, um, we've all been living pretty much with a 24-hour day, 1 g of gravity, 1 atmosphere of pressure, and all of our lives are pretty much very similar in many respects. When you start having people live and observe in very different parts of the solar system, I just wondering, kind of what new gut feelings and flashes of insights that we're going to have just from that different vantage point, having to reconcile kind of these different experiences with uh,
yep.
different things.
Well, I think a great example of that is the overview effect, which I think you're familiar with, right? Because
Mhm.
one of the other interviews I watched with you was with Rachel Lyons from Space for Humanity, right? Which is another great organization. So, um, yeah, when it's like the analogy of when you're a fish in the water, you don't know that there's air above the water, right? Everything is water. You ask the fish about the water, and they say, "What water? This is just life," right? So, uh, I'm sure the same will. It already has happened with astronauts that were on the moon, right? And they looked back at Earth, and it gave them a new perspective. So um, that's why I do believe that when we go back to the moon to stay, it will really be a cosmic impact on our perspective and our ability to solve problems as a species. I think it hopefully open us up to a lot of resources and ideas and perspectives that only come from being a part of the larger universe.
I I really hope that the astronauts that we send to the moon have a lot of curiosity and are given some free time. Those are kind of
Mhm.
like the two things. I'd hate to waste the opportunity of that perspective by having them essentially completely controlled by people with those blinders on here on Earth. It's kind of.
Well, I'd have to believe that everybody involved in programs realize that humans need downtime and recreational time, right? We can't be robots, right? So I'm sure when they have some downtime on the moon, that will give them a lot of opportunities for creativity, new ideas, right? And as other people have said, with you that we need to bring some artistic people up there too, right? Hopefully they can do something otherwise productive there too, right? But eventually, imagine when we have a large enough village, Moon Village or Moon Society there, uh, it's totally reasonable and practical even for us to have dedicated artists there, like musicians, right, or performers, right? So um, we definitely that's part of humanity. That's part of being human. So we need to embrace all that. Yeah.
Um, well, I didn't know how much time you had. I know I said 15 to 30 minutes, and I'm over 30 at this point. So,
Okay. Well, I think this has been great,
well, I
Nathan.
mean,
So really
did you
appreciate it.
have some more time or?
I think it would be good if we could wrap up soon. But do you have any other questions or?
Well, I have two.
Yeah. Okay.
One is I feel like the 2020s are going to be the space exploration what the 1990s were to the internet. That over this next decade, we're going to see sort of the development of things like Starship from SpaceX and the Commercial Lunar Payload Services Program, allowing for all sorts of companies to get access to the lunar surface. Artemis with humanity going back to the moon. The work that we're doing in terms of accessing asteroids and things like DART and uh, OSIRIS REx and the Psyche mission and things like that. Space-based solar power, I think we'll see a working example of that in this decade. And Of course, we have global internet. And I was just wondering, from your perspective, do you feel like that's over optimistic, or do you think that we're on track to kind of have the 2020s end with technologies and everyday experiences that we can't even imagine at this point?
Hmm. Well, I'd say just based on our ability as humans so far, we tend to overestimate change in the near term, but underestimate it in the long term. And so the next 10 years, I think I'd consider that intermediate term. Um, so for instance, um, my bets are it's going to be a big challenge for NASA to put humans on the moon by 2024. We'll see. It's ambitious. I'll tell you, actually, this was now maybe 5 or 7 years ago. I forget, but I just, for fun, made a prediction when humans from anywhere would get back on the moon, and I predicted it would be the Chinese to do it first before anyone else, and that would be in 2023, I believe I said. So we'll see how good that prediction is. But nonetheless, though, back to your question, uh, I think Elon Musk is an amazing man with drive and results that he delivers. NASA has their moon program advancing well. So, and again, the other countries do too. So by 2030, um, I really do think we'll have a completely new and exciting space economy, like the new space economy, some people call it. I think in 10 years, it will be thriving in a lot of ways. Um, if somebody is successful to bring back asteroid material back to Earth, as you know, they're working on, but actually do it on an industrial scale, that that's where some people say we'll have the first trillionaire person, right? If they can do that. Um, so it's and then we'll have space tourism. I'm sure there's a lot of different companies pursuing those. So I think it's a great time to be alive, and everybody should do their best to stay alive, stay healthy, stay with us as long as they can, right? Even if it's just to observe what happens. Uh, but I think we'll all benefit, and the best is yet to come. So,
And the last question, if it was safe and affordable, would you go to space?
well, I'd say my best engineering answer to that is it depends. So,
On something other than the safety and affordability?
yes, right. There's many factors at play. So, um, yeah, it depends how old I would be. Um, I don't know. I'm having a lot of fun here on Earth, but I I could be persuaded, but I don't know. I feel like I don't know. It'd be a great experience, I'm sure. But I will say, to qualify my answer, to give you some background, when I was in college, I did hang gliding, and that was awesome experience. It's like being a superhero. Just run off a cliff and you're flying by yourself. So I don't think there's anything that can compare to that. But of course, being up above Earth and looking at the whole Earth, that's different different perspective. Of course, that'd be amazing. Um, so we'll see. I guess if I'm open to the possibility. How about we say that? How about you? Would you do it?
Um, I mean, not having the option of actually doing it and boarding the spacecraft, I could easily say yes. But there's lots of times whenever I've gotten in the line for a ride at one of these amusement parks and then kind of checked out right before getting on. So this might be one of those too.
Okay. Well, yeah, you definitely have to work yourself up to it then. Get some get some high G maneuvers first in an aircraft or something, right? So
The hand gliding though, the very first time it was solo, right? I mean, you saw the people do it, but ultimately the first time that you ran off that cliff with the hand glider, it was just you and the glider, right?
no, actually, I did it first with a tandem with
Oh,
an
you can do
instructor.
that.
They
Oh,
have
okay.
they have
That definitely would be a lot easier to start with. I just, the first planes were like single pilot planes. So the people that were learning there, the first time they flew, it was just them.
they were real trailblazers. Yeah. So, well, there's
Well,
definitely a role for them, but you don't have to be the first to do it. So.
that's good. Well, thank you so much for your time, Brett. And I'm so looking forward to your book, Goodnight Moonbase. And I've also checked out your How to Be a Rocket Scientist. I think that'd be a good book to kind of guide some of our, kind of pre-career people who are interested in going to aerospace.
Great. Well, I'd love to help people with those or inspire them. So if we could follow up after this, if anyone you know who comes to you and is eager to get a copy of those books for themselves, let's talk, figure out how we can make it easier or cheaper for them. How about that?
Yeah, excellent. Well, I definitely look forward to it. Like my sister is a elementary school librarian. Seems like her library would be a perfect place to put one.
That's good. Well, yeah, my local library has it, so I'd love to have it available to kids there. So.
Well, you have a good rest of your day, and thank you so much again for your time.
All right. Hey, thank you very much, and best of luck keeping it up here until we get back to the moon. I'm eager to see more of your interviews. So thanks again.
But have a good day.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
you too.